Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Carla and I make videos about how I show up for myself in hopes of inspiring you to do the same. By showing up for myself, I managed to lose over half my body weight and transform my entire life. And here on my channel, I share weight loss, weight maintenance, mental health, ADHD a little bit as well, fashion and beauty tips. And if that's the kind of thing, and personal development of course, if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in, please smash that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss a video. In today's video, I am going to be chatting to you about something that kind of drives us all a little bit nuts. We're in the weight loss category today, and I am going to be talking to you about the naysayers. These are the people that we all know who are the people who have their comments and opinions and insist on sharing them with us when we're losing weight. And I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to deal with those people. But before I get into that, I just want to chat to you a little bit about the naysayers and something that helped me. So this is kind of like an extra tip number 1. And I think when we have perspective in these kind of situations, it can help us to understand where people are coming from, and it can help us have a little bit of empathy. Having empathy does not mean that we have to take on what they're saying or help them to change, but having empathy can help us to deal with them. When I was overweight, I was very much so the biggest weight loss expert that there has ever been. I knew exactly how to lose weight. I could tell you what you need to do. I could tell you about the latest fad diet. I could tell you the calories of this, and I could tell you that what you're doing is wrong. Even though at 23 stone, I was incapable at that time of losing weight myself. And I became a weight loss expert and a weight loss naysayer. And what happened was when people started to change in front of me, or change, or if they decided they wanted to do something different, what happened was it shone a mirror or a light onto my behavior. And when we fit into a certain category in the world, and I think the biggest example I can give of this is my sister. So my sister had always been overweight as well her whole life. And there was kind of almost like a solidarity with her, because it was like this unspoken thing that we were both overweight. And then all of a sudden she decided to lose weight without telling anybody. And for me, that raised so much shame and so many issues. It felt like I had been left behind. It felt like I was now alone and different. And I was very comfortable with Adriana being in that overweight category, because that suited me, for her to be like that, because at least in my mind, it was kind of like a subconscious, well, if I'm like really bad, like I'm really overweight, I'm really morbidly obese, at least she's somewhat bad because she's just overweight or obese. But at least there is this person here that is some proportion of what I am. And I was such a naysayer about her weight loss. I was saying, not even necessarily to her face, but I was very much so like, oh, she's going to put it back on again. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's in a scam and a cult. She was doing body sims at the time. And I was like, oh, she's in a cult. Like, this is never going to work. I was like, this is ridiculous. She's starving herself and she should do this and she shouldn't lose any more weight and all these things that she should do. And then I realize now that what I was doing was that I was panicked, and I was trying to control her in some way. I was trying to change that, and that my negative reaction to her losing weight was as a result of my own issues. And that's what I want to communicate to you today, is that sometimes when we step outside of the box that people have put us in, it can make them very uncomfortable, and they can try to control the situation. And sometimes they can, because that naysayer voice gets into our heads. But I want to remind you that sometimes the negativity that you get from people around you doesn't mean you have to deal with it, but it's because of an issue, most likely, that's going on with them. And you are capable of being empathetic and moving on. And hopefully these 5 tips will help you to deal with that and to deal with those people. Tip number 1 is At the start, I would recommend, if you haven't started losing weight yet or haven't started your journey, is to decide what type of person you are. And the main categories come in as to whether you are a person who needs external validation, accountability, whether you need that external voice, or whether you're a type of person who suits better if you keep things to yourself. The reason I'm saying that is because I had always been somebody who looked externally for the validation, for accountability, and my successful weight loss journey, I kept it quiet. The only people who knew that I was losing weight were my partner, my sister, and 2 people from work. The reason I did that is because I didn't want to deal with the naysayers. I didn't want to deal with anybody else's opinion, anybody else's words. I just didn't want to know. I wanted to just do my thing, keep my head down and continue on. And I even saw my cousin in the very first Body Slims meeting that I went to when it used to be in person. And my sister actually went up and said to her, do you mind if we just, keep to ourselves, and apologies, that we're not excluding you. It's just, this is I was in a very delicate position, delicate place. And she totally understood, and she didn't tell anybody. And I really appreciated that from her. And I didn't tell anybody that I was losing weight until it was so obvious that I had lost weight that I had to tell people. So by deciding whether you are my recommendation would be that if you are in any way unsure of what you're doing, or in any way not steadfast in your resolve, I would recommend keeping it to yourself or to a very close circle of trust. And then when you are further on your journey and the evidence is so obvious of what you have been doing, you can start to communicate because you're further along. If you feel that you need that validation from somebody externally, or the accountability from somebody, I would recommend being very careful about who you choose. And I would be very careful I would recommend almost to, I wouldn't say not to tell people or to do it with other people, but ensure that you're doing it for yourself. And the reason for that is, if you start with a group of people and after, 4 weeks, your best friend has decided that she's not going to really put the effort in, she can become a naysayer to you and then can influence you in your path if you're not steadfast in that resolve and you're not 100% sure why you're doing this, and you're kind of losing the grip on your motivation. And so I would ensure that if you're doing it with somebody, either you do it with somebody who's already further along the journey, or you choose the person very carefully, not the person that is a bit flaky. And then if you're going to tell other people, I'd recommend that you're really steadfast in your resolve, that you know what you're doing, you know why you're doing it, and make sure that you are accountable only to yourself, because this weight loss is a journey for you. Tip number 2 is to be so clear in your why. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to lose weight? For me, being extremely clear in my why, I knew that the weight that I carried, that I built around me, was a defense mechanism. It was the physical manifestation of how I felt about myself. And I no longer felt that way about myself. And I wanted to remove this. I wanted to be done. I wanted it off me. I was ready. I was finished. I was done living that life because it didn't feel like me anymore. And it wasn't. I had evolved. I had upgraded myself, gotten a new edition, and I wanted to rid myself of this literal ball and chain I was carrying around. And I was so sure I was so steadfast in my resolve, that because I had seen the evidence of my sister losing weight with Body Slim, so I'd chosen that. Was doing the therapeutic work that I needed to do, and I was very sure on the path that I was taking. I had my blueprint and I was going for it. But I knew why I was doing this. I knew why I wanted to do this. And if any negativity came towards me, and some did, there was mild negativity that came towards me, I knew why I was doing this. I deserved this, that the route that I had chosen was good for me, and that's what I was doing. Being really confident with your why can help to drown out that negativity if it presents itself to you. It can help you to continue to be motivated when you're losing, when things start to ebb a little bit and your motivation is going. And remember that consistency is above motivation, one day on top of the other. But keeping really consistent and steadfast in your why. Why am I doing this? And if your why is because somebody made fun of you, or your why is coming from a place of negativity, I encourage you to re-examine your why and possibly change it and look at another reason that is coming from you. What is it that you're doing for you? Is it for your health? Is it for, that you need to have some kind of surgery? Is it that you deserve this? Is it that this weight loss for you is the ultimate act of self-care? Because that's what it was for me. It was the ultimate act of self-care. Moving on then to tip number 3 is you do not need to jade. Jade is justify, argue, debate, or explain. You do not owe anybody a reason or an explanation or justification of the path that you have chosen and why you have chosen it. The only person that you need to do any of that to is to yourself. You don't need to argue or debate with anybody, because most likely what's happening is that a naysayer is looking for a response or a reaction from you. They're trying to get you to change your mind and influence your decision, either subconsciously or consciously. I did it subconsciously, and I would never wanted to change Adriana's way of doing things. She never explained or justified her actions to me. She never had to, because I didn't deserve that from her. It wasn't my business. My recommendation is to keep your answers really short and really clear. You're creating a boundary with people that they know that this is not something that they get to have an opinion on. This is something that you have decided for yourself, and that you are the only person that matters. And so when you speak to somebody or they try to justify it, you can say, I'm feeling really good, thanks. Or you can say, thank you for your input. You don't need to argue or change your tone or get into a debate with these people. You don't need to rise up, because they're looking for that change in your emotion, that trigger. So you can say, I'm really good, thanks. I really appreciate your opinion, but I'm good, thank you. Oh, okay, thank you. And by setting that boundary with people, you are telling them that I am not going to be justifying, I'm not going to be arguing, debating, or explaining to you. And keep that in the forefront of your mind, and always go back to that why. If you lose your track or you feel like, well, maybe that they're saying is right, remember that you've chosen this is your decision, and if you want to change the way you're doing it, that's okay, but this is your decision. Tip number 4 then is to ensure that you are not putting other people's feelings above your journey, and that you are your priority for this time. I'm specifically talking about times where you're going over to people's homes, or you're with the people, with the Agawam people, the Mrs. Doyles of the world. Agawam! You are being encouraged by people to have a little cake. You've got to live a little. All of this kind of naysayery, influence you into the dark side kind of thing. And we don't need to deal with that. And so we're going to do the same thing that we did there with the jade. We're going to be very clear and say, I really appreciate it, but I'm okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the offer, but I won't have any, thank you very much. No, I'm okay, thank you. No. Remember, no is a full sentence. People might be a little bit off with us at the start, or they might be a little bit like, oh, okay, that's unusual. But they are trying to influence you, maybe to make themselves feel a little bit better. They might want the cake, and therefore if you don't have the cake, it might be a little bit, they might feel a certain type of way, and that's okay. You are not responsible for somebody else's feelings. You are not responsible for them. And please don't destroy or derail your progress because of somebody else. because of somebody else's feelings, because of a slice of cake. And I want to go back to that saying, you've got to live a little, which I think is one of the most widely used reasonings that people or excuses that people try to get you to consume something that's not going to bring you to your goal. And when I think about this, when I step back and think about it, and this kind of came from a troll actually I encountered once. I was looking for an article about myself to send to, I can't remember what it was, sending an article about myself to somebody, and I was Googling it. Found this troll horrendous website, and somebody said that they felt really sorry for me because all I eat is salad. And it kind of comes into this, like you've got to live a little. And if having a slice of cake is the only way that we're living, or like feeling sorry for somebody because they're only eating cake, it's like the other end of or only eating salad. It's like the other end of the spectrum. It's like if our entire life's joy and our definition of living is only based on eating food or having a pint. Like, you can still go and have a drink with somebody. You don't have to have a pint. You can have a pint. Living doesn't mean that you have to binge or that you have to get drunk. That's not living to me. That's not the definition of living to me anymore. There are so many ways that my life is so full and so free now. I don't feel the need to be overboard on anything. It makes me feel, I don't like the feeling of it anymore. And to me, that's not living. To me, living is going and having experiences and being free in my body so that I can, try bouldering like I did the other day, or I can go to my dance, or I can go for a walk with my family, or we can go and I can run around a playground with Brannock. Living to me is having the freedom to get on a plane and not be worried about a seatbelt extender. That's freedom. So when we're thinking about what people and naysayers are saying to us and saying, we've got to live a little, we are living. Just because we're not eating cake all the time, we might have cake whenever we want it in maintenance. But just because we're not having cake now does not mean we're not living. Just think about that. Pause and think about that for a second. And then my final tip for you comes a little bit further down, but it's to let the results do the talking for you. I've discovered that the naysayers are very quick to be quiet when the results show for themselves. And you're not trying to achieve the results so that you can shut them up. You're not trying to achieve the results so that, that they won't talk anymore. You're achieving the results for yourself. And by doing so, you're actually kind of probably going to end up being an inspiration, and maybe they might change in the way that it did with my sister for me. But I think it's really important that we stop talking. We are not jading anything. We are just letting the results speak for themselves. That's the end of the video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Just a reminder that you don't owe anybody an explanation. No is a full sentence. And it's okay to say no to things or to not listen to somebody. You are worth this. You are worth doing the work. You're worth the effort or the slog or whatever it is. You are worth it. And if somebody else is trying to derail you, it says more about them than it does about you. And you've got this. Please like the video. Make sure you're subscribed. And let's do a little emoji. What will we do today? Let's do a cat emoji. Oh no, let's do cat emoji today, because I've actually managed to keep the cats out for once. So guys, thank you so much again for watching, and I will talk to you all soon. And don't forget to show up for yourself. Bye. Skin is so white today. I think I'm not white in person. No, I'm pretty white. Next.
Radio Nova.